for me, I chose Arizona because I felt like Sean Miller was the person that cared the most about me. He was at every game, or if he wasn't there, then two coaches on the staff were. He showed me that, his time, my time was valuable to him.
This is the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing. Now, here's your hosts, Paul Fritchner and Adam Baum, with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
Welcome into another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing, as well as the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. I'm Paul Fritchner, alongside Adam Baum and the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller. And to my left today, it is Nick Johnson, former Arizona Wildcat, played 3 years for head coach Sean Miller over here, Pac-12 all-freshman team, All-American your senior year, Pac-12 Player of the Year, all that good stuff. Nick, it's great to be here with you. Great to have you here in Cincinnati at Cintas, and you're sitting next to your head coach who has a podcast. How does that feel? The
legend. Man, it's crazy. Honestly, I never would have saw that coming. So great to be here. I've watched a couple episodes, so it's good to get on.
We had your former backcourt mate, TJ McConnell, on a couple weeks ago. Couldn't convince him to drive over. You came from Turkey to be on the show. He couldn't make it from Indianapolis, but we did do it remote, and we had a good episode. We talked about a couple stories from both his junior and in his senior year. But so talking to you, Nick, obviously it's the Arizona connection, and I don't think everybody knows that your final season in college, the team that you played on, right? Yeah. We came out of the gates and did some amazing things in New York City, where we won kind of the old formatted preseason NIT in Madison Square Garden. We beat Duke. Coach K was the coach. And from that point on, we got a lot of national respect. But we were ranked number one for most of that college basketball season. And at one point, we had won 23 games in a row or 22 games in a row.
22-0 going to Cal.
22-0 going to Cal, and Brandon Ashley, one of our best players, ended up breaking his foot in the game, which certainly didn't help our cause in particular in that game, and we lost. So, but what do you remember from that year? Think about it, your final year in college, and you win 22 games in a row. You're ranked number one for, a long, long time.
It's crazy. So story time already. I remember because 2 days before we played Stanford. Big game, Stanford may not have been the best team in the pack, but they had a lot of talent. Hard game. I hit a shot at the end. I remember Andre Iguodala was there. That was when the Warriors were, and I remember going to Cal, 22-0, number one team in the country. Brandon's family was obviously from there.
Yeah.
He wanted to wear these baby blue Jordan 2s. I'll never forget this, right? And they were a size smaller. And I remember you didn't want him to, but you said, all right, whatever you can do. He couldn't put his orthotics in there. And I don't know, first 5 minutes of the game, he goes down, and obviously, the rest is history. But no, just my time at Arizona, obviously with you and all the guys, TJ, stuff like that has just been amazing. And,
when I think about that season, and it's now a long time ago. You're getting old. I remember being the number one seed in the NCAA tournament, and it's one of those things where every time you do something, you learn from it. But I've talked about this to some other people. The burden, the pressure you feel, like you're the number one seed in the tournament. You have a 1 seed. Not the pressure necessarily to get to the Final Four, win the national championship. I think innately you always feel that. No. I'm talking about the pressure of the first game, where you're playing against the 16 seed.
Weber
Back
State.
then, nobody had ever, 16 had never beaten one. I don't even know how close the games really had been. So, when you go down 2-0 or at the end of 4 minutes into the game, right? You go to that timeout and you look up and you're like, man, it's close. It's not supposed to be this hard. It's a weird pressure. And I'm curious to see if you remember that.
Oh, yeah. Weber State. All right. Coach Miller has a unique thing of, couple days before when we're doing scouting and stuff like that. I remember this. This is year 11 for me professionally. So 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I still remember this. You swear you're playing the best player in the world. Like you're Dennis Rodman. He rebounds like Dennis Rodman, which in Joel Bollenboy's case, he was an amazing rebounder, Davion Berry, stuff like that. So, but no, yeah, for sure. I remember it was actually a really close game for a while, and then we pulled away at the end. But yeah, the pressure, you just get so much more media. Right at that time, I had just won Pac-12 Player of the Year. I was on Sports Illustrated, so just trying to, and like you said, we expected to be in the Final Four to do this, but can't start without getting done the first one, and then I think after that, Gonzaga got a good little
we got them for sure, and and we got all the way to the regional final against Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's a tough team even for people here at Xavier because they had this epic tough loss in the tournament. And that would have been JP and Trayvon's senior year when
No, it wasn't their senior year. It was 2016.
Yep.
Yeah, 2016.
Right.
In fact, it might have even been their sophomore year.
Okay.
2016. Yeah. But the wild thing is about that, kind of all it ties together. They played Weber State and them in their first game too.
Oh, really?
And then ended up losing to Wisconsin. It was the next game. It wasn't the Elite Eight. But
right. So that would have been their sophomore year?
That would have been their sophomore year. 2016 was the Wisconsin game. Okay. Yeah.
But quick. It was a buzzer shot at the end.
Yeah, Bronson Koenig.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
Koenig,
that.
Yeah.
So we get to a regional final, and again, I want you guys to realize we were 22-0, ranked number 1 for a long period of time, won the Pac-12 regular season. I believe UCLA beat us in the Pac-12 tournament. Yep. Which sometimes is a good thing, going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, we would have been a little bit too
high on ourselves, But we got all the way to the regional final. We were out in California. I think, the stars were aligning. I think we felt good about a lot of things. And look, we lost by, a point in overtime. Yeah. But there was a play late in the game, and every coach that I think loses a tough game late in the NCAA tournament can recall that play, that bad call or 50-50 call or tough turnover, whatever. But I really believe this. I think it was one of the toughest calls ever made in a regional final game. Yeah. Nick had the ball, driving it. I would describe the Wisconsin defender as running full speed and cross body blocking him on the last play. If it's called a block, he goes to the foul line, and really we have a chance to basically win the game. He called a charge, and it went against us. And I believe that went into overtime, or was that in regulation?
That was in overtime.
Yeah, in overtime. Yeah.
And that was the year that the NCAA really emphasized the hand check.
Right.
So offensive players were, I think literally that year was the most free throws that had been shot in college basketball. So everything that was, being done, and then obviously that happened. So
Nick, I've been in a number of those tough games, and wish one of them would go my way there in that regional final. But I have that picture on my phone.
Yeah.
I really do. If I had my phone, I'd pull it out right now. I know you believe me. But
we all believe you.
So that's one that I will never let go, because in my mind, it's the closest that I have ever been towards being in the Final Four. When you talk about the last play of the game, block charge, and it goes against you, But
that was kind of the same way with Xavier in 2016. Edmund Sumner was driving down the right side of the lane. He picked up a charge, and then Koenig comes the other way 2 seconds later and hits a three. If that's a block, it's the same. It's the same way. It is kind of striking how similar those are. Yeah, looking back on it.
But when you're in the tournament, very seldom do you remember the good things. You do remember the good things,
right.
But it's the power of March Madness, in that the thing that did you in, the team that beat you, that moment in time where that's why you're no longer advancing. It's crazy how you can remember those singular moments.
I think it speaks to the competitor you are, because, Nick, you wouldn't believe the amount of comments we get where it's like, guys, you have this great podcast, you have this great platform, and all you do is talk about the toughest moments. You talk about the losses.
Yeah.
All Sean wants to do is talk about those hard moments. But I think it really does speak to what those losses are like.
It's what makes March Madness captivate college sports,
Oh, yeah.
sports in general. It's why it takes over the world of, of people that love the game in that 2-week, 3-week window of time. Because, I mean, the storylines are immense. There's no do-overs.
Yeah.
It's not the best team that's going to win the game. It's the best team. And sometimes it's the best player on that particular day.
Yeah, for sure.
By the way, sometimes it's a team that just doesn't play well on that particular day for no reason. I mean, we all sometimes have that moment where the ball doesn't go in or you're just flat. That's not the time to be flat. That's not the time to not be ready. But, Nick, you've been a pro now for more than a decade, both in the NBA and in Europe. Every guy that we have on the show, we ask this question.
Yeah.
When you're in college, you don't know how precious it is until you're no longer in college.
Oh, yeah.
Would you say that you agree with that?
1,000%, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's at least I can speak for when I was in college. It's purest form, when you're playing professionally, and like you said, I played all over the world, NBA, everything. It's a job, and not that I don't love basketball anymore, because I've been blessed to play a game for a living for 10 years, starting 11 years this season. But yeah, I mean, you're at your purest form. You're thinking about, man, the student section was really rocking tonight, stuff like that, like little things like that. So, I mean, 1,000% pure just bliss. Yeah.
When you're in college, you want to win, you want to make the tournament, you want to advance in the tournament.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You think winning is just, if you don't win, it's the end of the world. That's also another thing about college is.
Yeah, well, especially at Arizona, especially at Xavier, you get into that high expectation environment. Yeah. To some degree, it's true. The losses are immense, but it's crazy because when you guys are in college, your goals and dreams are to not be in college.
Yeah.
You want to win. You want to. Understood, Coach. I get practice, but man, I want to be in the NBA. I want to get picked in the NBA. Like my journey doesn't end here. And oftentimes, I think when it all ends in college and guys go to the NBA, become professional, when you then review it and look back, it's almost like I wish I could have settled my mind even more in college, enjoyed it more, understood that these are days that I'm going to remember forever. And I still have my goals and dreams of being a pro, but like enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm blessed to have a lot of people from my Arizona days that I still keep in contact with and stuff. And obviously Dave's here right now with you, and just being able to see him every single time, I swear it's like a new story that we remember from 10, 12 years ago about, just being in the gym at night, going to parties, going to frat houses, going to football games, stuff like that. Like it's like you said, for sure, if I could go back and tell myself, just take it all in and,
So I'll ask you the question. With what you know now, being somebody who has a family, which we'll get to here in a minute, and you're on the other side of your career being a pro for a long time, the things that you've gained knowledge-wise that you know now, if you could talk to your younger self, maybe your junior year in high school, or your senior year in high school, your freshman year at Arizona, what's that one thing or that theme you think you would share with yourself?
Honestly, it's crazy because I would say that I had a mindset from a very young age, and it's the reason why I left Gilbert, Arizona when I was 16. I went to Findlay Prep in Vegas. I had a mindset of, like you said, I want to go to the NBA. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I wouldn't take that back because I think it's who I am as a person. It's who I am as a competitor. And I think what I am as a competitor is my biggest asset and always has been as a basketball player. And so I would say, don't change anything about that. I do think there's moments in time where maybe I was a little hard on myself as far as, and I mean, we've talked about this. I think I had expectations of, being a top recruit coming in to a tough team. My freshman year, we were coming off the Elite Eight with Derek Williams, and we
Lot of change,
we
yeah.
were not good.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we started out as a top 20 team, but we lost to Seattle Pacific, Division II, in our first exhibition game.
Yeah.
And just, kind of going through the ups and downs of that year. Next year, we had Mark Lyons come in,
Yep.
A guy who was huge for my career, but at the same time, for me personally, it was kind of like it didn't allow me to develop into the player that I thought I was going to be my freshman or sophomore year. And so I would just say, expectations are hard. Comparison is, the thief of joy. I would say trying to look at, maybe another top 20 kid that,
Yep.
hey, he chose Kansas instead of Arizona and he's a first round pick, or, what I'm saying, stuff like that. Like my Final Four schools were Louisville, Kansas, ASU, and U of A. And Louisville won the championship my sophomore year.
Yeah.
Kentucky was also a school that was recruiting me early on, and they won it my freshman year. So it's like, oh man, like I could look at them and be like, oh my gosh, like they won national championships. But for me, like, obviously I'm where I need to be. Obviously, like you said, we're going to talk about my family. That wouldn't have all happened if I wouldn't have done this route. And
I think the other thing too is if it's so hard when you're going through it as a player to recognize truly like who you are, self-awareness of I'm good at this, I'm not good at that.
Oh.
Well, I'm not good at that. I'm gonna work to improve this. I'm good at this. I'm gonna become great, right? Whether it be on the court, off the court. And I think sometimes even like looking at you as a senior in high school, even though you're at Findlay Prep playing a national high school, and then you had a really good opportunity as a freshman, but you weren't surrounded by a lot of older, wiser guys that could show you the way and take pressure off.
Yeah.
If you as a young player didn't play well in your first year, we almost didn't have enough talent to win.
Yeah.
So it's like a burden you feel. Dalen Swain would have felt that a year ago here as a freshman, right? Didn't have an older group around him. You then go to your sophomore year, and your sophomore year, we were in the Sweet 16.
Yep.
The thing you did have as a sophomore is you talked about Cheeks in Solomon Hill.
Yep.
So you had a couple guys that were older. Remember the young guys that were below you, as talented as they were, if we were just dependent on them, no way we would have been able to do it, right? But then all of a sudden, so you think about it, you grind through your senior year, you're a freshman. You get through your sophomore year, you're in the Sweet 16, like you said, but you are looking for more. Well, then all of a sudden, you found it.
No.
You're a first-team All-American. You're on the number one team in America. The last play determined an Elite Eight instead of a Final Four.
No.
I think we won 32 or 33 games. And you become an early second-round pick. But it's that process of developing, like thinking about the jumps that you made between each of those 3 or 4 steps. Man, how much better were you as a junior than you were as a freshman? But when you're fighting and you're going through it and the expectations, like you called it, comparison is the thief of joy. You're so right. You start to see things through an article or something that's written, or what about him? I had a meeting with Solomon Hill. I'll never forget it. Solomon played in the NBA for 9 years. And in which would have been his sophomore year, the year before Nick joined us, we were marching through the Pac-10 and not the Pac-12, and we were about ready to win a regular season conference championship. We had this bizarre game at UCLA. I'm going to say it might have been next to the last game of the season. It was the final game of the old Poly Pavilion. Ben Hallen was the coach. John Wooden's grandson was on the team as a walk-on. And at the end of that game, basically they're going to reconstruct Poly Pavilion. It was a magical big moment for UCLA people. John Wooden's son hit a 3 at the buzzer, as I remember it. I think for them to go up about 25. And it was just one of those deals. Like, I don't care who was playing them on that particular night. It was going to be a tough out. And we took the brunt of it. However, once we left L.A., we then had a couple games or a game left. We're going to win the Pac-10 regular season championship. Something to be proud of. But anyway, we were running into a bunch of things, and I had this meeting with Solomon because I could tell something wasn't right. And Solomon said, Coach, look, he said, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to transfer at the end of the year. That's when nobody transferred. I looked at him and said, we're about ready to win the Pac-10 championship, and you're talking to me about potentially transferring? Like, the season's not even over. What are you talking about? Well, Solomon's from L.A. He took that loss really hard. We had a guy on our team, Derek Williams, who was getting all the notoriety. And we had this bizarre conversation. Really wasn't bizarre then, but it is today. And he did that. He played the comparison game. He said, Coach, what's really bothering me is this. I know I play and I get we're going to win the Pac-10 or we can win it. I'll be fine. But I just don't see myself developing. There's this guy in California, and I mean, he probably don't even know his name, Kawhi Leonard. And he's from like Riverside, California. And like they're saying he's going to be like a first-round pick. You know how much better I am than him? And he said, and Derek, like I was ranked higher than Derek. And, Tyler Honeycutt, since, God bless him, since has passed away. But he's at UCLA and he's doing better than me. And like he played the comparison game.
Yeah.
And, what I said to him was I said, Solomon, you're going to remember me telling you this, I think. You can't judge yourself today. You have to have a bigger picture and understand that everybody's journey is different. How you feel today could be completely different 2 months from now, 3 years from now, or even 3 weeks from now. Because you can't become who they are. Their situation is different. It's not like if you're going to make it or when you're going to make it. It's like, let's just make sure that we focus on getting good enough. And if you're good enough, you're going to become an NBA player and you're going to reach your goals and dreams. And by the way, one of the things that's going to blaze that trail is you have to win in college. If you win with team success comes all the individual accolades. And I'm here to tell you, one of the reasons why the NBA loves Kawhi Leonard? Because if you look at San Diego State right now, they're great. They win every game. Now, I don't know if Solomon would remember this, but I remember it because here's why. 3 weeks later, we're playing UConn in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. Oh. And I looked at him at that game, and I said, "Do you remember when we talked about it?" And he kind of looked at me. Yeah, this was it. We win this game, we're in the Final Four, and it's like, wow, things changed. But that's, I think, one of the hardest parts, recruiting and coaching highly rated players, recruiting young people that have so many goals. You said it. Comparing yourself to another college player is the thief of joy. As a coach, you can do that as well. It's like every journey is different, and you have to lock in on your journey and become the best you can be. Yep. And really, Nick, I think that's what you really got good at Arizona. You continue to get better and better, more self-confident, more worried about what you could control and becoming good, becoming better, growing who you are, and less worried about what he's saying or what he's doing, as you grew and matured. I'll never forget we had this conversation maybe after we went to the Sweet 16, might even have been a year after your freshman year, and you said to me, Coach, we have to get closer together as a team. Like, we live in different places. We have to get one house. We have to get together. We have to live together. We have to become closer. I believe that will help us. And I really let you orchestrate that, and I think it went well for a while.
Some good, some bad, for sure. No, yeah, honestly, seriously, I felt like that was a big thing, and I think I still credit that to this day why I think that team was so close and so good on the court is because, we got sick of each other sometimes. But, no, we were together every single day. Yeah. We were at all times, it was probably 5-6 of us together anywhere on campus or, at home or anything. So, yeah.
When you're a first-team All-American, I wish Tom Iser was here to clarify this. There's also a unanimous first-team All-American. Now, today there's probably 15 teams that someone can make and say, I'm on the such and such All-American team. But I'm talking about the credible, however many it is. I think there's 5, if I'm not mistaken. Nick was 4 of 5. So that's pretty good when you're a first-team All-American and you miss being a unanimous first-team All-American by one team. Pac-12 Player of the Year, and he was an absolute stud in his final year for us.
Who the hell left you off?
I want to say it was AP.
It
actually.
was the AP. You were second team.
It was AP, right?
All the
Yeah.
voters are in the East. They never stayed up to watch the games.
It was AP, but it's all good. No, it's crazy because that year, obviously, my sophomore year, I think I averaged 12 points. I don't know. Are you the fact check guy?
I am the
He's
fact
stat
check guy, but
11?
I was somewhere around there.
Yeah, but I knew I was going to have a good year, but honestly, it's crazy because we just were, we were rolling. I'd never thought about, I remember the first time I thought I could be Pac-12 Player of the Year, we were at UCLA playing, and Bill Walton, rest in peace, to the legend.
Yeah,
Bill,
love him.
Amazing person.
He is an amazing person.
Nick Johnson. Every single time he'd introduce himself,
he would say his name.
No,
Nick
exactly.
Johnson? Bill Walton.
It's crazy because
slow. Bill Walton. Yeah.
The amount of interviews I've seen about him since he passed, everybody says the same thing. It's
which
so
shows
crazy.
you how consistent he was.
Oh my gosh!
In good times and in bad. And
Yeah.
people think it's an act. It really wasn't an act. It was truly who he was.
Yeah.
He was an authentic guy. Yeah.
But yeah, he was the first to kind of push me for that, and yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I get the trophy. I have it in my house now, so it's cool.
It's a forever moment.
The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Deer Park Roofing, a company that's provided elite service for homes and businesses since 1996 and leads the industry in professionalism, quality, and responsiveness. Whether your needs are residential or commercial, like the outstanding work on the Cintas Center, the home of Xavier basketball, Deer Park can handle any job and ensure it's done right. Deer Park's motto is protect what's important, and what's important to you is important to Deer Park Roofing. Visit deerparkroofing.com. The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Payroll Partners, where you're not just a number. That means providing a best-in-class HR and payroll experience that was built on award-winning technology and live support customer service with a dedicated payroll specialist who's just a phone call away. You shouldn't have to choose between technology and customer service. At Payroll Partners, you get both. Payroll Partners is locally owned and operated by a proud Xavier alum. Visit payrollpartners.net. That's payrollpartners.net.
Welcome back here to the Sean Miller Podcast. We appreciate Nick making the trip out here to Xavier. You mentioned something interesting, and I wanted to circle back to it. You talked about when you were going through the process of deciding on where to go to college, one of the things that you think about now is the fact that you chose Arizona and your family and how that all – so talk to us about your family.
Yeah, so been married for a couple years now. We have 2 daughters, one actually on the way as well, so a third coming. All 3 girls.
3 coming. I didn't know about the third one. Yeah. Congrats.
They really want me to be like Kobe. I tore my left Achilles. I have a Kobe tattoo on my leg, and I have 3 girls. So, but I mean, honestly, it's been an amazing experience, and I mean, like you said, my journey has been a blessing because it's led me to that. And, I wouldn't obviously change it for the world. The NBA, whatever, anything like that. I mean, I'm on the path that I, was supposed to be on, and it's the best thing in the world. Yeah.
I go through my time in coaching, Nick. I'm sitting at, this is my 20th team, right? 20 years. I'm no longer the young coach anymore, right? And I would tell you that among, the many families that I've dealt with recruiting, and they're in the hundreds now, I think that there's nobody that's loved their son more, that's been in it every day more than your mom. I mean, his mom is amazing, her love for her kids. But, being out on the circuit, the rules were different back then, and Nick will tell you, we recruited Nick really hard. I mean, I recruited Nick really hard. I mean, we spent a ton of time, was at every game, followed him around almost from the time that I was named the new coach at Arizona. But his mom, Michelle, was at every practice, at every game, on every trip. And she was about it. And then what was great about Nick choosing Arizona, and look, that became our advantage close to home, but yet not right down the street.
Yep.
And his mom was able to be almost, I think, every home game and most away games, if not every away game. And that was amazing because that's the forever moment on her end where she really shared in those 3 years.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. I wanted to ask you actually about what the changes. Obviously, there's some huge changes, but what as far as recruiting, because like you said, like for me, I chose Arizona because I felt like Sean Miller was the person that cared the most about me. He was at every game, or if he wasn't there, then two coaches on the staff were. He showed me that, his time, my time was valuable to him. How do you connect to players now?
It's very different.
Yeah.
In some ways, it can be easier to go from one season to the next because there's a lot of different ways players come to you through the portal.
Yeah.
Remember this, Nick, when you were in college, if you transferred, you had to sit out a year. That alone discouraged a lot of people from transferring. Right now, you can actually transfer twice without sitting out. And by the way, you don't have to graduate or anything. So, that alone has really changed things. It's a completely different deal. But I do think what you said is still really true. Yeah. That all of us as coaches have the opportunity to say, you're my guy. And a family feels it. A recruit, even in a transfer portal, how you spend your time tells everybody who you covet or want the most. Yeah. So I think we still try to approach it that same way. But back then, recruiting, it was much more challenging on our end because you were flying, you were spending days, sometimes almost a week at a time. He played for the Oakland Soldiers, an EYBL program. And man, I spent more time around the Oakland Soldiers in a couple summers than I did with my own family in the summer. It's just, you look back at those days, it's wild. It really is. Yeah. But also your dad and, Joey Johnson. And I don't know if you guys know, there's a legend on Nick's dad, probably one of the highest jumping guys, athletic guys, played at Arizona State, played junior college before Arizona State. Nick gets a lot of his athleticism from him, trust me. But his dad, people would say, could take a quarter or a penny or a dime off the top of the backboard.
6'4".
Would you validate that that's true?
Yes, yeah, that's true. I didn't see it because, I was...
But that's the legend.
Yeah, that's the legend.
I asked him about it, and he didn't deny it. He just basically he's a very humble guy.
Yeah, he could do that. He, at one point, held the Guinness Book of World Record for highest dunk, 7 3/4 or something like that.
No, it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I hurt myself just thinking about that.
So, and Nick's uncle is the late DJ, Dennis Johnson. And if you look at him in his face, you can kind of see DJ, and he died way too young. But what people don't realize about him, because I think when you think of Dennis Johnson as a player, you think of him playing for the Celtics with Bird when he was an old school guy, right? He would back the guy down on the parquet floor. But when he was young, he was as athletic as anybody in the NBA as well. So I don't have to tell you guys, think you know it, but Nick, in terms of bouncy, jumping, lateral quickness, God gave him a lot of ability. We had some dunk contests at Arizona in our red-blue game. Our red-blue game was like here at Xavier, the analogy, the comparison is the Musketeer Madness. And we would have dunk contests that I'm telling you would rival the NBA dunk contest. For example, in his last year, it was him, Aaron Gordon, and Gabe York. Yeah. Those three guys could get in any dunk contest in the world. You've seen Aaron and win it. Nick could as well. And it actually got boring for them because they kept doing it one year after the next. But think about those three guys in the same dunk contest.
I think Aaron took it to the next level. What he did in the one dunk contest against Zach was out of this world.
In the NBA.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you that ties in your connection here at Xavier, playing overseas. Holloway was here at practice today. We retired his jersey a few weeks ago. He was in town, came back in town today. So you guys ran into each other, but you've played against each other overseas. So just what was that like running into him, and what kind of a competitor is Holloway?
It's crazy because the first time I'm a basketball fan. So growing up, or not growing up, when I was in high school, I watched Xavier. I knew how good he was, but I remember when he actually came to Tucson to practice with us. And I think this was maybe my sophomore going into my junior year. So I thought I was, and I was blown away, honestly. And still, when I played him in Turkey, he's still one of the hardest players that I've ever guarded. Just speed with the ball, ability to shoot, and just strength as far as, he's got arms longer than me. And
he does. Hands, huge hands.
Yeah,
too. Long arms and huge hands.
Just he's a great competitor. And yeah, he was somebody that I was like, man, I gotta focus on him. But yeah, I mean, obviously great career at Xavier, and I mean that backcourt, Mugg, him and Jordan Crawford. I mean, all being here at the same time. That's some college firepower.
And Jordan
right
Crawford
there.
just inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yesterday,
or
the Xavier
a
Hall of
couple
Fame.
days ago.
Yeah, for sure.
That's some firepower right there.
No question.
Sheesh.
Yeah, no question about it. Nick, if you're talking to a young player who's really talented, say he's 18 years old, he's a junior in high school, going to be a senior in high school. If you gave him advice on becoming the best defensive player he could become, because I would tell you, of all the guys that I've coached, you're one of the best defensive players that I've coached, and not because of your ability.
Who would be your top three? Let's hear them.
Well, I only coached Aaron Gordon for 1 year, but it's hard for me to name another name because of just how smart he was, how versatile, how hard playing he was. I put Rondé Hollis Jefferson up there.
Yes.
Same. I mean, those two guys, and I would probably go you and TJ.
I remember.
And the scary part is, I just named 4 guys on one team.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And I
remember
that's why I'm real shitty that we didn't get to the Final Four.
You brought up the Duke game. I remember when we were in practice leading up to the Duke game, and it was the year when the freshman focus.
I was so mad.
It was Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, that's all they
Jabari
talked
Parker.
about. Yeah.
And I think at that point, Jabari had broke the record for most 20-point games to start a season or whatever. And he told me that I wasn't guarding him. And I was pissed. Oh, I was so mad. And here I am. I'm a 6'3" guard, and Jabari Parker's 6'9", and I didn't care. I was
By the way, we have Aaron Gordon and Ronnie on the team. I don't know if that's a bad move.
I think he finished with like 18, and I was like, I would have held him to like 10. I was pissed. No, but we won. So,
but we had a defensive mindset.
Man, yeah.
But answer the question.
I would say for me, it's the willingness to do it would be one for sure. At this level, professional, college, high level, whatever, most everybody has the ability. There's obviously guys that are freaks as far as, like Rondé, just a size, athleticism, ability to move, stuff like that. But for me, I'm a great athlete, but I don't necessarily have the size that Rondé or the length or whatever. So I would say that first. But I mean, I think that's something that it wasn't always me. I think my freshman year, I was probably not a great defender.
No, he got better. Yeah.
I had a lot of people to look at. I think for me, the biggest person is Kyle Fogg for sure. Mm-hmm. He was somebody who still to this day, I played him last year in China. Mm-hmm. I mean, he gets paid a lot of money to score the ball, but he's probably one of the hardest guys to score the ball on in the world. And I'd say that 1,000%. I'd bet a lot of money on that. And so I would say willingness, and then obviously having a system. Like for me, it brought me back watching practice today is, show, trail, whip, like all these different terminologies and stuff, and having the knowledge and stuff like that. Yeah, like having the knowledge to do it. And then, I think my last year, we knew that nobody could score on us. Like that, having that mindset of, I want to say it was Washington State, maybe. I think they had like
8 points at half, I think.
8 points at half. Mm-hmm. They finished with like 26 or something like that on us. And this is a Pac-12 regular season game. And we honestly probably could have held them to like 20.
Yeah.
Like seriously, it was at that point where we were winning by so much. It was like,
It was years later when I came to realize this. one of the things that really helps you become a great defensive team is to recruit great defensive players. It's amazing how those drills and timeouts and halftime adjustments and scheme aren't worth a damn unless you have the troops. I mean, that's the one thing about coaches. Like, you can really get carried away, like in your own space of like, man, I'm a really good defensive coach. If you roll out there with T.J. McConnell, Nick Johnson, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, Aaron Gordon, and Caleb Tarczewski, who, by the way, in his own right is a terrific defensive player, there's going to be a lot of coaches that could say, hey, I think I'm going to be a great defensive coach this year. But we were wired for it, for sure.
Yeah. I can't believe Dante didn't crack your top 3. How far down the list do you have
He's
to go?
really far down. Yeah, no, he's really far down. Yeah, he's kind of a legend in his own mind in a lot of ways, but I'd put him as a good defensive player. But when you're talking the best of the best, there's a long line that he's in, yeah, for sure.
No, but Nick, you mentioned like sitting out there and watching practice, and I wanted to ask you, is there a surrealness to that? Like to watch Sean Miller coaching Xavier in practice and you're sitting there. Well, what's that like?
Man, I was smiling the whole time, I promise. Like it was so cool because it brought me back to college. It brought me back to those days where is practice going to end? Like, man, we've done this drill the last 5 days in a row. Like, and it's funny too, because I heard some of the guys, like, I won't name names, but like, man, this is old. Like, they're getting, it's early on in the season, but it's those days that, you grind, you keep on doing, and then, in March, that's when it matters.
One thing that's really different is we can practice in the summer now.
Yeah.
And we can actually practice more in the fall. And sometimes as a coach, you forget that difference. Coaching your group, sometimes why it was so long or why you went twice in a day is, remember, we didn't have the access in the fall or summer that we do now.
It doesn't matter.
And these
now.
guys today, when they complain, they have no idea how good they have it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so
for
who cares
sure.
what they think?
All right, last question here before we wrap up, because Sean, I know you got to go here soon. What is we asked TJ this question. He had a great story about how Sean kind of chewed him out after the Weber State game.
Nick was there.
The Weber State game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you maybe either your favorite or your most memorable Sean Miller story. I'll put you on the spot a little bit.
Man.
Remember, this is the Sean Miller podcast.
Yeah.
He has full
I'm gonna try
editing
to be
control.
good. No, I mean, honestly, my favorite memory of him is actually after I got done playing. And I remember the first couple years you get out, you still know all the guys there. You just, I was in the United States, so I was on the same time, stuff like that. And I remember watching the game, I don't know what it was, but you took off that jacket. And you seen the picture of him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Everyone's seen that picture.
And I remember I tweeted or something. I was like, we got to get him a shirt deal or something like that.
I'm here to tell you, I turned down, no kidding, I turned down like maybe 4 like pretty big deals, potential commercials, because they wanted to play off the sweat, and, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Do you regret that?
No, I don't regret it. I regret taking my jacket off. And I didn't know any better. I was just, by the way, the real story of it is I had no sense in place of where I was because we were getting beat so bad by Wichita State in the NCAA tournament. I was just saying, I hope to God that it doesn't get to 20, to 25, to 30. That's how it felt, We flew all the way from Tucson, Arizona to Providence, and we're playing this team that they say is the last team in the tournament. They have a guard. He's just okay, Fred Van Vliet. They have another guy, Rob Baker.
Ron Baker, yeah.
Ron Baker. And both guys, by the way, had already started 2 years earlier on a Final Four team. Fred is like in the NBA, damn near an NBA All-Star. Ron is like an NBA player. And it's just like how they were seated where they were. But anyway, I was caught in that utter confusion, and that's what happens. The rest is history. Yeah, it was a bad moment. Yeah.
No more suits, though. We're a quarter zip guy.
Very different.
Yeah,
very
right?
different. That helps.
College basketball. That helps.
All right, Nick. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks so much for stopping by and jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Nick,
it.
great seeing you. Best of luck coming back from your latest Achilles.
Yep.
How many more years do you think you're going to play pro? What would be your over-under?
How many? When do I have a job?
Whenever you're done.
No, I think that we're gonna see after this recovery where I'm at, kind of as far as job scenario and stuff like that, and then I'll play off there. But I'm still young. My body.
Do you think you want to coach someday?
Yeah, that's always been the plan.
Yeah.
Like I when I was at Arizona, I always did like recruiting visits and stuff like that. I really loved that. I had camps and stuff. I've always, and honestly, on every team that I'm on, I talk the most. I'm a coach basically. So and now especially being like, it's crazy because the last like 3 years I've been the old guy on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like it went from being like, it just hit me 1 year. Like I was the old guy on the team, and so like I actually got to, be in the coaches' meetings and stuff like that. So, yeah, I really enjoy it.
He's going to be a really good coach. I believe that. My prediction is that both TJ McConnell and Nick will coach somewhere. I believe both. And I think wherever they coach, they'll be really good.
Nick, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks to everybody for watching another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Deer Park Roofing, and the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. For Adam, for Coach Miller, for Nick, I'm Paul. Signing off. We'll see you next week. It'll be basketball by the time you listen to the show next week. Crazy how fast all this is going down in the offseason. But thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week on the Sean Miller Podcast.
Boom.
This has been the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing, with your hosts, Paul Fritchner and Adam Baum. Join us again soon for another episode with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.